I quit. How many times have you just wanted to state those words and walk away? Done, finished, no more. How does it feel to imagine what that would be like? I used to do it on a regular basis. I quit my job as mom multiple times over the years, sometimes multiple times a week. When it became too much, I'd literally lay down on my bedroom floor crying and tell God, I quit. Now, I knew down deep in my heart that I wasn't really quitting, but God always let me throw my little temper tantrum. And I knew I was in good company with the prophet Elijah, one of the heroes of the Old Testament. If you'd like to pull up the story, it's a really good one. It's in 1 Kings 18 and 19. You see, Elijah was a great man of God, and there was an evil king and his counterpart queen, Ahab and Jezebel. They're a pretty interesting pair. Anyway, Ahab and Jezebel set up the worship of false gods in the nation of Israel. And so Elijah had a showdown with the gods that Israel was worshiping and the one true God. He had them bring their prophets together. They built an altar and they said, whoever's God answers by fire will be the one true God. Now, if you know this story, the prophets of Baal sang and danced. They cut themselves. They shouted louder, but needless to say, their God did not show up. And then Elijah came forward. He had them throw water on the sacrifice and dig a trench around it. He called on the name of the Lord our God, and God answered by fire. Then crowds turned on all the false prophets and they slaughtered them. So Jezebel heard about this. She wasn't real happy. In fact, she threatened to kill Elijah. Elijah gets pretty discouraged and says he wants to quit. He says, I'm ready to die. Elijah, I get you. I am so glad that God didn't forsake you in the midst of your pity party. And I'm really glad God didn't forsake me in the midst of all of my pity parties. I'm not sure my quitting or Elijah's was the best kind of quitting or quitting for the right reasons. But honestly, I've wanted to quit a lot over the years. As a good Christian woman, a faithful woman, I've lived according to passages like Galatians 6:9. And let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. Then there's James 5:11. Behold, we count them happy which endure. Or sayings like, winners never quit and quitters never win. These messages have impacted me, and I bet they've impacted you. Sometimes they can hold us to things that may not be in our best interest or the best interest of our family. Well, fortunately for me and my family, there have been times over the years where I've just had to quit. Sometimes circumstances dictated that quitting was the best. I quit a job once because I had to get up at 3 a.m., clean a church, and be done by 9 a.m. Now, that wasn't the problem, but early one evening, as our family was winding down, I remembered that Jacob, who was my youngest son, was sitting on top of me as I was laying on the couch. He was holding my face and trying to wake me up to tell me something. I knew in that moment it was time to quit. I was sacrificing the ability to parent and to be present with my kids to make extra money, which in all honesty we needed, but not at the risk of being absent for my children. I found another job, better hours with people, and it offered me the flexibility I needed. God provided, even though I quit. Have you ever had to quit a friendship, a partnership, a ministry with people you love and care about? Beloved, quitting is hard work, and it doesn't come naturally to many of us who take the word of God literally. Maybe you've been told by spiritual leaders or successful men and women, don't quit. Yet I see so many women laboring under the heavy hand of not quitting. Hey there, I'm Misty Hughes, an experienced mom mentor, celebration coach, and gratitude guide. Yes, that's a real thing, and I'm proud to be one. I'm also a mom to 4 incredible adults, and my absolute favorite title is Grammy. As a busy mom juggling 4 unique children, I attended countless conferences, read numerous books on self-improvement, and soaked up teachings on productivity, home management, and habit building. Every time I think, I can do that. What a great idea. I'll implement that one right away. But soon after, I'd hit a wall. The sheer volume of advice was overwhelming, and I had no idea where to start. Between raising my kids, church and community involvement, managing a household, trying to do it all, I felt paralyzed, incapable of making any real progress on anything. Just getting through the day felt like a major achievement. I craved mentors and tools to help me thrive, not just survive. Now, I've transformed those years of chaos and growth into powerful lessons, with the biggest one being simplicity. On Mom to Mom Mentoring, my mission as your mom mentor is to keep it simple. Each episode will spotlight one thing, a single idea, strategy, or tool to help you become the best version of yourself right now. Additionally, I lead women's retreats, virtual masterminds, and workshops, and I'm a keynote speaker and certified coach, passionate about helping women live, lead, and love from a thriving heart. My mission is to spark a ripple effect of gratitude, transforming hearts and families. Today's transforming idea is quitting. As you know, I'm passionate about embracing life with resilience and joy, even when it means making the tough decision to quit something. Have you ever considered that quitting might actually be a good thing? Well, today we're going to talk all about good quitting and how it can bring balance, peace, and simplicity into your life. As busy Christian mothers, sometimes the best decision you can make is to quit something. And no, I'm not talking about quitting caffeine or even giving up chocolate. Are you ready? Let's get into it. Now, you might be wondering, is quitting even biblical? Well, let's turn to Ecclesiastes 3:6, which says, there's a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away. Sometimes choosing to let go is the wisest move you can make. But how do you know what to quit? Let's be honest, some things are just not worth our time and sanity. Like a job where I was getting up at 2 a.m. every day and falling asleep on the couch by 6 p.m. every evening, unable to be present with my family because of fatigue. Maybe there are activities or commitments draining your energy without bringing joy. At the beginning of each school year, my kids and I would sit down and evaluate activities. With only one parent, one vehicle, and 4 active kids, we really had to determine what we could and could not do. And you know what? Sometimes the family missed the mark. We overcommitted, or the reality is, I overcommitted. And stress would seep in and take its toll on the family dynamics. Matthew 5:37 advises us, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Believe me, sometimes a firm no is the holiest word in your vocabulary. I had to learn to say no before committing to something that might eventually cause burnout, stress, or family conflict. I didn't just wake up one day and no was in my vocabulary. It was a hard lesson to learn. I didn't like quitting. It made me feel like a loser. I was afraid people would judge me. I was afraid that they would think I couldn't be trusted, that my word wasn't honorable. But the practice of quitting because I had overcommitted taught me the hard lesson of learning to say no on the front end. One of my daughters even told friends once, we can count on mom's consistency. Her yes means yes and her no means no. Oh, she's not always right, but we know she's consistent and sticks to her word. That was a pretty good compliment, I think. Well, I was running a race during that season of life as a young mom, and you're running a race now too. Your race might be different than mine, but Having grown up in a single parent family with other members of my immediate family, single parents as well, I was determined to run the race that set my kids up for successful adulthood and relationships. Sometimes, in order to run that race, our family had to learn to throw off things that entangled us, like we're directed in Hebrews 12:1, which reminds us to throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. As your mom, mentor, your friend, and coach, I'd like to ask you to consider, what race are you committed to running right now? What can you let go of to better run your race? What can you quit? We often overcommit as moms and women. How many times have you found yourself agreeing to commitments out of guilt or obligation? How do you know when you've overcommitted? This was another big lesson I had to learn and safeguard against. And if you haven't figured it out by now, I learned by making mistakes. When I overcommit, it became obvious by relationship breakdowns. When my kids were young, I could tell I had overcommitted because one, if not all of them, would kind of start to act out. A crisis would occur, and I would realize, oh crap, I have become overcommitted, and I wasn't standing guard over the hearts of my kids. I haven't been available. I haven't been present. At one point, when I was in full-time ministry, my oldest son started down a path of behavior that wasn't congruent with who I knew him to be. I yelled, I screamed, I threatened, I withheld. But when I pressed pause, I realized I had missed the mark. I had not been present and taken precautionary measures. I'd not been available for discussions or even knew how to have discussions that needed to be had. I hadn't done my due diligence as a parent. Honestly, I had this notion that if I was being faithful to God in my full-time ministry, He would be faithful to me and my kids. And don't get me wrong, He is, which is one of the many things I love about Him. But He invites us to partner with Him in this journey. And His faithfulness meant that He needed to show me I was running at a pace that we couldn't maintain as a family. When I realized I missed the mark, I'd messed up, I'd failed as a mom yet again, I went to my supervisor and was just honest. I said, we're having a bit of a crisis and I need a week off to regroup. When I come back, I can't give as many hours as I've been giving. Well, fortunately, I was in full-time children's ministry and our focus was on building biblical families. So my supervisor said, sure. I know many families are now evaluating this work-life balance in order to be present with the family. And if you're in that, I applaud you and your partner for trying to run that race and figure out what that looks like. I recently ran into a man named Bob Joff. Well, I didn't really run into him. His name came up in a podcast I was listening to. Have you heard of him? I think I have, but maybe not. Well, I found out he calls himself a recovering attorney. He's a writer, speaker, etc. The intriguing information that I picked up was that Bob has a quitting day every Thursday. Isn't that interesting? And a little challenging as well. Friends and acquaintances of Bob's wonder if it's this practice that has helped him maintain his buoyant spirit over the years. In a brief interview, Bob explains, in Christ, we are a new creation, but we tend to hang on to the old ways. He has challenged himself to give up something that is not serving himself well. Unforgiveness, a desire to be heard or understood. Perhaps it's an activity that's weighing you down or causing stress. In this episode of Good Quitting, what is one thing you could quit that would give you more mental, emotional, or physical capacity? All right, moms, let's get real for a second. Have you ever tried to be the homeroom mom, bake cookies for church, run a small business, raise a family, all at the same time? Oh, not to mention do the laundry, get the kids where they need to be, plan the grocery list, go to the grocery store, make the meals, keep the house clean, remind your kids to keep their toys picked up, all of the things. Maybe it's time to practice Bob's methodology of quitting and become more of the woman you envision yourself to be. Maybe this idea of good quitting will give you capacity to live, lead, and love from a thriving heart instead of striving and stressing to get it all done. Here's the rule. No one else can tell you what to quit. If you listen to episode 6, I mentioned that I always recommend taking your kids on the journey with you. Well, perhaps you can consider this idea of good quitting to make it a Monday mealtime moment where each of you in the family decides to quit something for the week. Perhaps you start with a list of everything you do in a week and see what is that one thing that you can cut back on or hand off. My oldest son was in a select or club soccer, whatever you call it now. When he was young, before he was able to drive, I had to give up taking him to all the practices and waiting on him to get done. I had to quit so I had capacity to do other things like make dinner or work. We sat down together and made a list of other soccer families on the team that lived close to us or that he was comfortable with. Then we asked if they would mind helping with rides a few times a week. And guess what? On the days I did drive, I helped the other families with getting their sons back and forth to practice if they needed. Pretty soon, my son had the confidence in those relationships. When he needed a ride, he would make the ask. Wow. I even got to quit asking. I'm going to incorporate this idea of good quitting into my quarterly habits. I'm going to quit saying, I'm sorry and I apologize. Just listen to episode 8 to learn what I'm choosing instead. I'm quitting something that doesn't serve me well. If you listen to that episode, you'll find that saying I'm sorry consistently and I am a chronic apologizer brings down my soul and brings down my spirit. And because it takes 3 or 4 months to develop a new habit, I want to quit for good. So this is a quarterly goal of mine. Mama, don't get me wrong. I know quitting is hard, whether it be quitting social media, a job, giving rides, saying yes to being class mom, quitting apologizing. It puts us in a place of uncertainty and vulnerability. It'll force you to trust God. As I look back at the times I've quit something good to pursue something great, I realize how these situations forced me and my children to depend on God. Can you believe we're already at the end of another great episode of Mom to Mom Mentoring? I hope you're feeling as motivated and uplifted and ready to quit as I am. Before we wrap up, I have something special to share. Are you ready to take your journey of transformation to the next level? I'm thrilled to invite you to join my Growing in Gratitude 6-week transformational cohort. This is a unique opportunity to dive deeper into practices that can truly transform your life and help you embrace gratitude in powerful ways. More information is waiting for you in the show notes, so don't miss out. And hey, if you enjoyed today's episode, I'd be so grateful if you could leave a review and follow the podcast. Your feedback means the world to me, and it helps other busy Christian moms like you find our supportive community. Remember, quitting isn't always a bad thing. It can be a God-honoring decision. So take a moment, breathe, and let's practice some good quitting together. Until next time, keep thriving, keep shining, and may your quitting be blessed and fruitful. See you on the next episode of Mom to Mom Mentoring. And don't forget to check the show notes for all the juicy details. Stay blessed, my wonderful moms.